All right, final part of this inclusivity lecture. Are our ELA classes inclusive? So again, this is information from the International Literacy Association 2018 conference this is a bit of a pull from all of the sessions that I went to. We have to save a child now, not their future. So we have to be practicing inclusivity now in order to support that 6-year-old Black student who, simply because of the color of their skin or his or her skin, is destined to be pigeonholed into a certain type of student, right? We have to be engaging with our Indigenous 10-year-old girl who is in our class right now. It's not just about their future, it's about saving the child now. That's our job. We have to work with those who are not interested in reading by, and again, back to Rudine, Bishop Simmons, is engage. We need to engage them with books that are windows, mirrors, and sliding doors for them. They need to see themselves and they need to be opened up into new and different worlds. Our class has to be a safe space. It has to be a safe space where inclusivity is just the bottom line and exclusion is just not a part of our class. We cannot accept that certain students, because of their color, ethnicity, or gender, fail or cannot read. We have to address our own bias towards certain students, and we have to analyze that as academics. We have to say, okay, what is my basis for thinking that this child might have difficulty in reading? And if there is no actual assessment or there's no actual indication of why that child could not read, maybe because of a learning disability, those kind of things, it's your job to get that child reading, right? To do as much as you can to smooth that path for that child to read, okay? This is one of my favorites. We cannot just have a diversity basket of books. What happens when we have a basket that's like this? These are our diverse books. What happens when the child actually identifies with somebody in one of those diverse books? What does that tell the child about themselves? It tells them that they are other, they are different, that they are off to the, like, physically and emotionally off to the side. So your books have to just, all of these books that will show all students in them have to just be part of your in-class library or your library or your school library. It can't be we're having a diverse book week or whatever. Like it absolutely then continues to cement the bias that if you identify with the character in this book, that you are other. Okay? Look for books that show sameness. Again, I'm going to go back to Year of the Dog. Again, she was just a young lady who was trying to find friends, trying to fit in, trying to navigate childhood, versus focusing on, she ate different things and her family had different traditions. Look for books that show sameness, that you can actually then really point out in a really explicit way in your reading instruction, in your reading and writing instruction. Blend all books together for students and parents. And I know that this is a little tricky because you might say, oh man, I'm a first-year teacher. I don't want to get in hot water with the parents because I have a book on my shelf that has same-sex parents displayed in it. And you go, I just don't want to go there. I think we have to go there. I mean, talk to your other teachers in your school, talk to your principal. But I think as soon as we exclude those books from our library, from our in-class library, from reading them, we exclude that child. And you might say that's pretty dramatic. It is dramatic and it's traumatic, right? And we have to stop doing that as teachers. research your books, right? A majority of books written with Black characters in them, this is just an example, are written by white authors. So do a little bit of research as an academic. You've been at this for a while in university. Use your academic research skills and be like, okay, because if you have a book that is written by a white author and depicting Black characters and Black culture, they may not have a full grasp of it. So again, be the good researchers that you are. Okay, couple more things. How can we be welcoming? So how can we be welcoming to all students in our class, all the way from our, white middle class farm kid to a refugee to a Canadian born, but first language is a different language than English? How can we be welcoming of all students? Again, have some materials. If you have a child who is a Spanish speaker, have some materials in their language. Think about how excited they would be. Say they're in grade 5 and they're competent in reading in Spanish, and they have a Spanish book that they can fly through. How great is that, right? And there are lots of programs now that actually offer, like online programs that offer bilingual or trilingual or multilingual editions of the same story. Okay, this is really learn a few phrases in their language. Even hello, goodbye, how are you, good job. Just a few of those phrases. If you say that to a student, like if you have a French student and all you say is bonjour, comment ça va? It's like that, hearing their first language it just sort of warms their heart a little, and then they might be that much more interested in listening to what you say. You should also be cognizant that when you meet the parents, absolutely say hello, how are you, in their native tongue, even if you butcher it. They will absolutely appreciate it, and they just watch the smile when they hear their language being spoken. Okay, understand that your students are smart. They just don't have the English language skills. So you might have a student that is like brilliant, but they just don't know how to express that in English. But they cognitively, they can absolutely understand it. So understand that that cognitively they're ready. They're ready to partake in the curriculum. They just don't have those English skills yet. Know how to pronounce and say properly their name and use their names. Don't use a nickname. Don't truncate it. Don't say, oh, well, I can't say your name, so I'm just going to call you Susie. Like, it's not their name. Learn how to pronounce their name. Get them to repeat it back to you, and say their name properly. Even you guys, well, because it was COVID, I couldn't do this, but I will go up to each individual student and I will say, hi, I'm Colleen, and your name is, and then I get the student to actually say their name to me so that I hear how the student wants me to pronounce their name, so that I don't call somebody, if it's Kirsten and they want to be called Kirsten, then I actually make sure that I call them the right name in there. So next point, make new students as welcome as you can, even if they come midway. And I know sometimes this is tricky because, you've got your classroom community set up and you've got your groups and yada yada, but again, it's your responsibility as the professional in the room to include that student, even if they come in January or March or May, into your community classroom. Know that they're going to be nervous, right? So think about, an 8-year-old coming into a class and they know no English, and they spent 6 hours a day in trying to figure out what's going on. So they're going to be nervous about this, and plus they have the whole social situation where they're trying to also fit in and do all of that. So just be cognizant of that. They are also dealing with usually a totally different culture. So even things like lining up, don't assume that kids know how to line up. They might be dealing with a different climate. I had a friend from Nigeria, and she was just so cold all the time in the winter, and didn't have boots, like was totally ill prepared for winter. And I'm like, okay, honey, we got to go get you some boots because you're not going to, you actually are not going to survive. So, like they might just not even have a jacket or boots or know that they need those kind of things. And they're dealing with a new country and new, even just fundamentally, we are very individualistic, my rights over anybody's. And they may come from a very collective type society where it's all about supporting everybody and making sure that everybody has enough. And so even just that switch on a broad basis can be tricky for them. And I would say connect with the family as soon as possible. Sometimes, especially if they are like a refugee family or a new immigrant situation, it's tricky to connect because lots of times it's just hard to connect with them. Know that, and I know this from experience with SAMIS immigration, is a great connector point. If you really cannot connect with the parents, contact SAMIS Immigration, because if they're new immigrants, they can help facilitate that. And I thought that was a really great resource once I found out that could happen. Okay, again, this is a little bit of a recap. Books in our English Language Arts class should, again, allow readers to see themselves. We want them to be able to see themselves in these books. If you think back to Grace Lynn's video about she never saw herself in a book, and how that really defined who she grew up to be. Get those books that show a diverse a diversity in characters and in situations. Allow readers to see into the lives of others. So allow readers to move from one end of this continuum to the other. You want to move from text that affirms their own lives and experiences towards the other way that affirm lives and experiences of others. And this is if a child never has a book that affirms his or her life experience, they begin to want to suppress their identity and self. Mraz says, building true compassionate empathy is the work of a lifetime, but for humanity to have a fighting chance, it has to begin with this work in our classrooms and the books we make available for kids. You might think, it doesn't really matter. It matters. It matters. It matters. Kind of crazy. Be windows, mirrors, and sliding glass doors. Just keep that in your mind, that image in your mind. Just let books be books. No separation, no otherness, no book box based on race, sexual identity, or ability. Just books. Just let the books be books and let them speak for themselves. Be talked about specifically. So instead of using generic label of like diverse, talking about a book being about an African-American family in an urban setting is better than saying, okay, this is our diversity book, but it's just, here's a family in an urban setting. Let's go. Let's see what happens. Be considered as one. Okay, here we go. Now I got it. Be considered as just one voice. Okay, so a book is just one voice. Don't assume that every book written by a white person holds every white person's values or thoughts, or that every white person knows the content of it. So if you are reading something like Wangara Maathai and you have someone in your class from South Africa, we can't assume that our lovely friend from South Africa will know everything about everything in the book. She may know lots of things about things in the book, but she might not know everything about in the book. And so don't make that assumption that just because maybe that child is from that cultural background, that they know everything about that cultural background. So again, just keep it tight. And be evaluated for the invisible voice. We need to look at our literature and see whose story is rendered invisible. So who, when we look at our classroom and we look at all those shiny faces in front of us, who is never represented in books? And then your job is to go after that and to find books, right? To find books that will allow that child to, again, be the window, be the mirror, be the sliding door. They'll be able to see themselves and they'll be able to experience somebody else's experience in there. So I just have a quote from ELA Literacy Today magazine, and this is a quote from Christy Mraz. As a teacher in a classroom, what message does it send when I place a bin of diverse books down in the library? What other basket of books in my classroom is grouped in such a way? How do I explain what books get put in that basket and which don't? Thinking about answering those questions digs at hidden and uncomfortable bias that without honest reflection, we are likely to transmit onto our students, which is exactly what we don't want to do. And finally, there are just so many amazing books now. There didn't used to be. You're living in a great era of children's literature. This is just like, 0.00001% of the amazing books that are out there. I gave you some lists of book lists under the reading strategies lecture. So when you see those on your ePortfolio, that's where you start to pull these amazing books together so that our kids can really see themselves. And you might think, oh, Colleen, you're just being dramatic. I am, because these books that we introduce our students to in elementary have impact on who our students become and how they view themselves in the future. It's big stuff. All right. Take care, everybody.